I'll start. I'd like to welcome everyone to our November PTO meeting. My name is Andy Lippman, and I am co-president of Valley Southwoods PTO, along with Alicia Manuel, if you'll wave. Lane Mendenhall-Buck is our moderator today. We are glad you're able to join us for this virtual meeting. Our topic today is what keeps our principals and administrators up at night and what makes them get up every morning. We have several speakers to get through today, so I'm going to be brief. Please know that we'll be taking questions at the end of the presentations of each presentation. And please use the chat box for those questions. Lane will be monitoring the questions for us. Before we move to our first speaker, I wanted to mention what our PTO has been doing to help with keeping our schools safe, keeping us connected, and helping staff know how appreciated they are during this very difficult year. At the beginning of the year, our PTO provided masks to all staff members at Valley and Valley Southwoods. Our PTO has also provided ID badge lanyards to all students at Valley and Southwoods so that they could be identified by staff. Our wonderful hospitality committee, if those who are on could wave, they provided meals, packaged meals to teachers during conferences, and our directory committee will be getting directories out very soon. To continue to do our work supporting staff and students, we need your help. Please consider donating to PTO either through our Give Lively site found on our Facebook page or becoming a member through our website, www.vhspto.org. Our first speaker today was going to be Superintendent Dr. Ramey, but instead, Lane is going to cover her topic, which was online learning, transitions, and schedules for Valley Southwoods and Valley. Lane?
Okay, great, thank you, and welcome everybody. I will just make a side note. There is a Q&A option, I believe, if you are an observer, and if you would like to put in questions in that format, we might be able to track them there as well. It's not, if you end up putting information in the chat, we can certainly collect that, but if you have specific questions, we also have that Q&A option. So again, welcome. Dr. Ramey sends her regrets for not being able to join this morning, but I am going to provide just a brief update on several things. As you should have received a communication through email, text, and app alert about an hour ago, we did receive notice this morning that the waiver has been approved by the Iowa Department of Education for all pre-K through 12 students to transition online starting this Monday. So for this audience's purposes, obviously current 10th through 12th grade Valley students are already in an online learning environment, and they will continue through Wednesday, December 2nd. Valley Southwoods will transition online starting on Monday. And there are a lot of logistics that are going into place to support our students and families and staff, quite honestly, as we consider this transition. So I'm just going to try to briefly go through each of those demographics and then certainly can take questions. As we think about moving online, we are looking at how teachers and where teachers will be providing that instructional support. At this point, many staff probably will be coming into the building, but I believe that there's also been given choice if teachers have the resources at home that they could provide instruction at home from their home using, logging in just like they would at work. However, that may not be universal, and it really, honestly, probably won't be as impactful to your student as far as their physical location, but just know that that is being handled really on a case-by-case basis. And so where those teachers and assistants might be coming in and providing support, we're looking beyond just the certified staff that are providing support to teachers, but also depending upon special education students or other IEP or 504 plans, there may be additional support staff that would be joining online to provide, whether it's small group instruction or individual help. And so just know that if you have a student who has an IEP, that work has probably already been done in preparation for an event like this, but you would reach out to that individual IEP teacher or counselor who's working with your student to answer any of those questions as to how that transition may happen. We know in some small percentage of cases, that there may be students that will still need to have some on-site support within buildings. And so I don't know the specifics as to, I'm talking at that district level, so I don't know specifically with Southwoods and Valley if there are students impacted with that, but just know that we are obviously looking on a case-by-case basis as to how we can continue to provide that instructional support to all of our students. Technology is something that we've been working on throughout the fall as far as making sure that families obviously are aware that they can get internet support. If they don't have access to the internet, we partnered with MediaCom, have been pushing the word out through our teachers, our bilingual family liaisons, a lot of different resources to let families know that whether they just need that internet access for just the day-to-day work, and then homework and tasks that students would be doing, even if they were on site. When we go into a transition like we are right now, and all of our students or most of our students would be at home, we want to make sure that they have that technology resource of internet access. And we feel like we've come a long way in that direction. We know not 100% of our families have internet access for any number of reasons that I won't get into right now, but that's a continued area of support that we reach out to parents about. And we have a way for them to reach out to us if they have questions on that. Same thing for Chromebook and any kind of other technology problems. If there's a broken Chromebook, if there are any of those challenges, that's all. Those layers of communication will continue to be sent out to families. So I'm trying to, again, give you that big picture. I know that you have administrators who are going to answer your school-specific questions, but when we think about moving 9,000 students online, there are many, many areas that we have to navigate, and technology is an important one, as is nutrition. And so our nutrition department is working on a plan to have curbside meal pickups available to families that will be twice a week. My understanding is twice a week, with a couple of breakfast, lunch meals per time that families can pick up. And of course, this is a free service available to our families. And so another way to help support our students in this challenging time. So looking outside of just the academics, what does that mean? Nutrition's important, technology is important, and those are areas that we managed last spring, and we managed it probably more on the fly than we have now. We have really good plans in place, so we feel confident that that we'll be able to get those students meals and the technology support they need. We also have to, kind of look at what does it mean if we transition online for activities. And as you know, or maybe you don't know, but I will reiterate that when we transition into an online learning, a required online learning environment, like we will be on Monday, that all school activities, athletics, extracurriculars, all of those will be canceled for any kind of in-person events. And I did have a question about, well, gosh, what if show choir had a virtual meeting? And quite honestly, when it gets down to those layers of activities that may be able to continue through a virtual experience, those will be communicated out through the building and through that particular teacher or advisor who is working on that. But looking at it again as a system district-wide, that those in-person events, activities, athletics would be canceled for that period of time. Again, we're talking specifically right now for Monday, November 16th through Wednesday, December 2nd. We will continue to meet with the board. I believe our next meeting at this point is going to be November 23rd, our standard regular board meeting. And at that time, the board will be looking at our COVID data and making a decision as to whether or not they wish to extend the request of the waiver for online learning. And I honestly don't have any kind of insight as to what that might be. It's just want to communicate to you that we are meeting as a district leadership team and with the board regularly to provide them updates on not just Polk County data, but what's happening here within our district with staffing, with absenteeism, with COVID rates, all of that, so they can make the best decision that they can for our students and staff safety. So just a kind of an update on that piece. Trying to think of some other things related to transitioning online. We will be sending out a newsletter later today with some of the logistics that I talked about. We know also that buildings have been preparing for this for a long time. As far as we assumed that it wouldn't be if this happened sometime during the 2021 school year, but when it happens, will we be ready? And so Valley has already done a great job of reaching out to families and providing those kind of logistical things. A question came in about the December 2nd date, and the December 2nd date is because it is specifically 10 school days. So as the waiver can actually, it states it can be up to 2 weeks, but there are a few things that we were looking at from just logistics related to, we have a professional development day tomorrow, so that's already in place. We have our Thanksgiving break coming up here in a week or 2 weeks, whatever that time period is. So we have that coming up. So how could we have 10 school days? How did that add up? And would that give us what we felt was a reasonable amount of time to have our students learning from home, decreasing the interaction, encouraging, hopefully parents, I would reiterate, we need your help as parents to limit interaction and student interaction with peers to decrease just the spread of the virus that's happening right now in central Iowa. So decisions related to Thanksgiving and other outings, you're hearing this at the state and local level, and we're reiterating that our move online is to do everything we can to decrease the number of students impacted. And another person said our teachers teaching online or in the building. That is not 100% one way or the other. We're not closing buildings to teachers. There are some teachers who may not have access or feel comfortable working from their home, but could come in and safely work independently within their classroom and provide virtual instruction from there. So that is my understanding, is that is going to be handled on a case-by-case basis based on how teachers want to proceed with that. Just wanted to reiterate, there was another thing that came up about engagement and student engagement, and I saw an excellent communication that Mitch had put together for his families, and there will be similar things going out to other families. Just saying, engagement of getting students to engage online is going to be critical, and how they do that, what their expectations are around having their camera on, how attendance is taken, how they're making sure that they are logging into Canvas and getting their tasks. All of that is going to be really drilled down, and I will defer to Valley and Valley Southwoods administrators to speak to how they're managing that with their current online students, as they have a decent percentage of students already learning online, and then how will they carry that out to all of the students. And I have a sophomore at Valley, and so I know as a parent myself, It's been interesting when I walk in the morning and I'm like, you do realize that you have to be, up and engaged in 20 minutes, right? She'd be mortified if she knew I said that. So, just getting kids to know that just because they're at home doesn't mean that they're just laying in bed and rolling over 5 minutes before class starts. And that's something that is a challenge, I'm sure, for many parents. And so it takes all of us just to really encourage students to think of it as, it's not just like laying in bed and kind of half listening. It's what can I do to get up, get ready for the day, get engaged. So that's really more me as a parent stating that, and through my own experience. So what, before I transition on to anything, and I'm going to answer some questions here, I just want to make sure that I haven't missed something. I probably have missed a lot of things. We are going to be, again, continuing to send out communication, both at the district level and at the building level, just to reiterate, what does this mean? If a parent has a question about something, who do they go to? Especially those families who have been accustomed to on-site learning and haven't gotten into the routine. I'm going to wait, and there are some questions around schedules. I'm going to wait and have schedule-related questions answered by Mr. Maxwell and Mitch, or whomever else on the high school leadership team is available to speak to that. And my question, I guess, to you, Andy, since you started this off, I know we talked about having Lisa Ramey talk about many things at the beginning and then transitioning it over to the high school administrators. Do you wish to wait then and hold off on any schedule related questions until later? I still am going to speak briefly on COVID-19 updates and kind of the larger return to learn second semester plan at the district level.
Well, that's what we were hoping that Lisa would cover, is the online learning, the transition, the, everything that attached to this here and now, updates on that. So if you want to go forward and then let the principals go next, please.
Sure, no problem. So, so again, we're continuing to provide updates to families. Another part of today's update that we'll send out is a reminder that tomorrow is the deadline for families to choose for second semester if they want their students to be learning online or on site. We have had a lot of questions around why are we asking that this deadline, why is the deadline now when second semester isn't for 2 months? And quite honestly, there are many things we learned as a district through this first semester that just prove that this is a very complex process. And as we look as a system, as a district, as far as what does that mean to families, the complexity of transitioning back and forth between one learning environment and another is especially challenging at the elementary level. It's not to say that the secondary level doesn't have their own transition things that they need to go through, but we staff, and in part secondary, but quite honestly, primarily at the elementary level, the way that we manage staff assignments and students assigned to a specific grade or classroom is very different, and it's very contingent upon how many students are choosing online versus on-site, because we assign teachers as online teachers. We could have a teacher teaching third graders from across multiple buildings. We could have students who have been online this fall who want to go back to the building, but their building third grade is already full because of other students who have chosen on-site for the first semester. So without getting too much into the weeds, the goal of having this decision now is really to help our building administrators, our teachers, anybody who's managing staffing be able to plan so that before winter break, families know exactly all of the details, or as much of the details as we can send out prior to winter break, so they know what second semester will look like once students get back in to class, which, as you recall, I believe we return on a Tuesday, this next year. I'm just looking at my calendar here, make sure that I'm accurate on that. But if I'm accurate, I think Monday, January 4th might be a professional development day. And forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but if it is, whether it's Monday or Tuesday, we only have 2 short weeks and then it is second semester. And so we know families want to know as early as possible. So the planning, we basically backed up and said, what's the latest we can get this information so we can adequately plan for all of our students? And that's why they came to that November 13th deadline. You've also heard us say that we do not, that we are not going to have another second option to change your mind down the line. We know that there will be some extenuating circumstances that come up in a family related to health needs or some other situations that may require us allowing that transition to happen. But overall, again, the more stable we can be with the choices that families make, the more stable and consistent it is for our students and our staff long term. So again, the deadline is tomorrow. In our communication, we will be sending a link out. What we had been doing is, I don't know how many of you have actually made the choice, but you would have gotten an email that actually had, hello, you are the parent of Madison Mendenhall, in my case, click here to choose, and it already had pre-populated her ID into a custom URL. So all I had to do was click, select my choice, and hit submit. Many families had reached out saying they didn't get the link, or it was in their spam, or any number of things. And so what we're doing is we're actually going to post that link on our website, as well as include that in the newsletter that goes out today. And as long as they know their student ID number, their student's ID number, which is on their student's ID tag, you can ask your student, they should know the number. You can type that in, hit enter. It will then show, okay, is this for Madison Mendenhall, to make sure you didn't mistype the ID number. And then you select and hit enter. And so families will be able to just do it that way, as really just a follow-up. We have about 3,000 students who still have yet to have had that choice made. So about 2/3 have made that choice, with 1/3 of those families, not 1/3 of families, but 1/3 of students who have yet to finalize that choice. We knew that that may be the case, as people wanted to wait as long as possible to make that decision based on their own personal, family situation. So there will be follow-up with those families. Obviously, we're not going to be at 100% by the end of day tomorrow, but our goal is to get as close to that as possible, and then do individual follow-up with those families. And we were able to, last summer, get 100% of our families contacted, and that determined in a pretty short amount of time after the deadline. So we anticipate that will be the same process that we use again. So that's our return to learn kind of time frame for second semester. And the choice that we make, the way that we make decisions of moving into this fully online environment will absolutely be in part as to what's happening with our percentages at the district level and within the county percentages. So I want to share just real briefly and that our ability to adequately staff is a key piece in being able to have a building, or even us as a district, stay with on-site learning. And by that, I mean, if we have staff absenteeism rise above a certain percentage without the ability to fill those substitute roles, then we know that we need to transition online. We had that happen this fall with Crossroads Park for a week, where we had over 1/3 of our staff out. And so we had to transition online in order to basically support continued learning. And the reason that is there were some staff that were quarantined, but we're still able to provide virtual instruction. And in some cases, occasionally that happens even now across our district, where a student, the teacher may be remoting in to provide instruction, versus necessarily all of the students transitioning online like I just described. But we will be prepared to be agile and move in and out of that environment at a building level, at a classroom level, or certainly in the situation like we have now at a district level. So I would anticipate that could happen again second semester.
Thank you so much, Lane. Is there anything on COVID, anything else on COVID that you need to do? I want to make sure we have plenty of time to talk to the principals.
So an update, there have been questions related to the dashboard and how we update and how we're tracking that information. So essentially the work, I just want to give a shout out to our nurses. Our nurses do an incredible job each and every day, and they work tirelessly on weekends and at nights doing that contact tracing. And so it is really important to encourage our families to let us know if anybody in their family has tested positive, or if they have been communicated with outside of the district that their student or a person needs to quarantine, because that will help us in our contact tracing. And that helps us also be able to update our dashboard accurately with the number of students who are positive on any given day or considered a close contact. Likewise, on the staff side, we have a process in place for both, but and we update the dashboard at noon the next day with the previous day's data. And so that has been our process for the last probably 10 weeks. And at this point, I don't see that we would change that process as we're trying to be as transparent as possible in that information.
Lane, we seem to have a lot of questions popping up on both the Q&A and on the chat. A couple of them do deal with online, making a selection for online right now rather than later. I don't know whether you want to answer those questions or you want David and Mitch, but they're starting, I mean, want to get those answered.
Sure. So I think I explained the why as to why we're doing it now instead of mid-January. And it really is about being able to adequately prepare and plan for across the entire district for staffing, and to be able to have enough information to share out prior to winter break. That's the goal. I'm gonna defer certainly any kind of schedule related questions. There was a question about how can we help our students with a learning style as far as if they are transitioning online. And I also would probably like to have our administrators speak to examples of how that's been working successfully already this fall with some students. And they would have more anecdotal information on that. And then I'm just going to jump over here.
There was a good suggestion of potentially extending the deadline 1 week because this will be the first time a lot of students will be accessing online learning for the first time. Just wondering of the feasibility of that.
At this time, I have not heard of an extension available. I certainly would say that that's good information to pass along to leadership and to see if that is an option. I don't know if a week gives adequate time to have a reflection on that. I know that there was a longer time period that I heard of as far as getting families and students acclimated to what that was like. But again, I defer to David or Mitch to speak to that. It's 12:30. I know that the last half hour is really supposed to be school specific. So I will transition over, and if there are questions that I can help answer later on, I'd be happy to do so. You are also welcome to email me if there are things that you feel I didn't cover, and I can provide some follow-up in an email to Andy that she can send out.
Great. Thank you, Lane. We'll go ahead, and David and Mitch, I don't know if you want to do it together or whether you want to speak separately, but please answer some of those questions in the chat box in the Q&A, please.
Yeah, so David and I kind of talked there on text, and I'll go ahead and kind of kick us off a little bit. So if you haven't seen the new continuous online learning schedule, it is going to be something that will definitely be pushed out here. But kind of what brought that forward was last week when Valley went online. And if you remember, the online schedule was probably one of the first schedules that was ever created last summer. And we had no context of what to create or how to create and what to do. What we know about online learning is that we don't want our kids in front of a computer screen for 8 hours a day. And so you saw those half-hour increments in chunks. And then you also had the autonomous Wednesday kind of built in the middle there. Well, last week was kind of an eye-opener for Southwoods and Valley, because with Valley going online and then us at the 9th grade building staying in, there's a lot of things that we tie together. So we have kids that take classes in both buildings. We have the orange-black schedule that stays on a rotation on a calendar. And we realized very quickly that, whoa, we really can't exist very successfully for long-term with 2 different schedules. So we came back to the drawing board. And if you want to think about kind of what we talked about, is like the teachers now have been used to this block instruction, which 85 minutes of instruction, to whittle that down to a half hour, maybe 4 times a day. Many of them that were doing that, and David, you could speak more directly to this, just gave us feedback that said, hey, this is good. We understand what we're trying to accomplish. We do this a little differently and structure it throughout the day. So what we did was we really took the start times that we currently have for our classes, where we have our 4 classes a day, and we built that half hour starting on those current start times. That way, if we were ever in this situation again where Valley is offline and Southwoods isn't, it's not a huge transition. Our kids would still log into the Valley teachers when they're teaching online, and it doesn't disrupt their day. The example I'll give this week is that sometimes our 8th period was at 11:20. Well, that's right in the middle of our full day. So our kids had to make a choice of where to exist. Or the other thing we did is we just had the high school teachers come back on in the afternoon to allow our 9th grade students to interact in that classroom work. So we came up with the new schedule that still is designed for a half hour of direct instruction, but we put that, I'm going to call it extra time after that. So there's still almost a full 90-minute chunk in between classes with a built-in break, with lunches, all in there. And so the students still shouldn't have to be on, like, physically in front of a computer screen all day. They still have that 4-hour window, but it is spaced out throughout the day. Okay. We did determine that having an autonomous Wednesday is probably not the strategy that we want to go with. We want to keep the days moving forward so we can stay on our orange-black schedule that we've created throughout the school year. So we just made some, I think, really solid modifications. And obviously, starting next week, that's the schedule that we'll be rolling out. I'm going to talk directly to the question in regards to students that might be worried. We do have some new opportunities here. So for instance, I have some associates that might be my study hall supervisors that we have the ability to do some reassignment to give students more support. So the example I might give is that if you know your student is struggling in certain classes, if you can identify those students for teachers, we could probably get an adult to come in to do a little one-on-one tutorial during the work time for students. So I know, and I think David's going to have a few extra bodies that we're trying to keep moving and keep busy and supporting students. I know that's what I'm going to do at Valley Southwoods. So if you have a kind of a person that's really concerned about moving to online, it's not their best learning style, they need to be talking with someone, I know that we would be able to accommodate that with another adult, another associate that will still be able to check in throughout the day. And maybe there's just a scheduled time that we could set so that that student we could come in and we can say, how'd you do on that lecture? Did you understand? Is there anything I can reteach? Is there anything I need support on? So I know that's what we're planning to do at Southwoods. David, I'm going to kick that one to you right now to see if you have other plans as well or similar.
No, that's a great idea, Mitch. We have a few staff members who are looking for some things to possibly do during this time when we're virtual. And so that's a great idea. If any parents who have students who might be struggling in this virtual world or online, just reach out to the teacher. The teacher can reach out to the administrator and the counselors, and then we can start lining some tutors to step in and provide some additional instruction.
So keep hitting me with some of these questions. I see that Alicia linked the schedule in there, so you can actually now open that in the chat window. what's the administration's vision for small group instruction, independent learning time, and what accountability we have in place for students during that time? That's a great question. We essentially have talked to my staff about, we really want to hold firm on that half hour of direct instruction. Okay, and so what that looks like, that's where our teachers are going to you're going to be logging in. This is where I'm going to take attendance, and this is where I'm going to outline all those activities that I'm expecting you to do. As I said earlier, my teachers aren't going to fall off that Google site. I know for a fact that my teachers are saying that I'm going to stay logged in. I might only teach for this first half hour, send you off, but if you need me, I'm still here. I'm going to be here for answering questions. You can email me. I'm encouraging, just so you are all aware of this, if your student uses the Google or our district Chromebook, our teachers can be on GoGuardian and still be watching exactly what your student is doing. So we're encouraging you to use your school device. We're not forcing you to do that, but if you use an Apple computer or somebody else's laptop, my teachers don't have the ability to oversight as well as they would if you keep them on their Chromebook. So that's kind of a big feature, and I know that many of my teachers do that now, and it's going to become more important. A couple other things that I'd ask parents to help us out with. It's really hard to teach to a group of pictures or a group of names. And we're still not requiring making the cameras have to be on, but here's the minimum request that I would make. And I don't know if I can do it here because on my Google account, I have taken my Infinite Campus photo and I've put that in as my emoji. So at least if my camera's off, I still see your name and I can still see your face, and I can start to build and continue to build that relationship. That for me would be the bare minimum. I've told my teachers, start giving kids PBIS rewards points for actually doing that, and try to reward them on the back side of this, so that so it's more of an encouragement. But any parent help on that is pretty critical. And to be honest, I hope this is what's happened every time, because we've had kids in and out all the time for quarantining. So our teachers are very used to this. Their Canvas pages all have almost just a single button that says, here's where you go to get to my online course. We have done a lot of honing both at Valley and Valley Southwoods to make sure we're ready for this process. If you can't find it on the Canvas page, A, I'll be mad, but B, call us and we'll get it fixed, because I don't think there's a single teacher right now that doesn't have it just boom right there, and this is how we're gonna do it. And again, we'll take our professional development day tomorrow to even tweak that even more. So those are just some pieces that I know that I wanted to get out. I did send out, as Lane indicated, a question and answer, at least to my staff or to my student body and to my parents. I shared that with the other administrators, and David, I don't know if you're planning on sending something similar, but it kind of everything that we need. So it's kind of weird, but they're going to be at home. But let's say you still have a doctor's appointment and you're going to be logging off from 1 o'clock till 2 o'clock and you're going to miss a class. We still want you to be acting as if they were in person, because we still need to record that for attendance. We need to know that, hey, they were gone from my class. Otherwise, the teachers are going to mark them absent. And we're not really moving away from the truancy process at the 9th grade building. So if kids aren't coming in, we're going to still be following up with those attendance pieces. So parents, just remember, treat this like it's just a normal, everyday operation. Keep communicating with us. Even if COVID-related things, we still want that information, so we know and can code things correctly in our system. So I would just tell my families, keep doing what you're doing. Don't really change, because we're now in an online environment. And that's pretty much what my Q&A kind of talks about. So I'm going to stop talking. David, is there anything else you want to add here?
And just real quick, David, I would like to make sure that one of you answers a question that a student actually put in related to the 30-minute class periods. And is that enough time to be able to ask questions and get that engagement? If that's within the Q&A portion of this Zoom meeting, if you want to read the full question and then reply.
It's a very good question.
Here we go.
Yeah, and I would say, so that's exactly why we adjusted our schedule. Okay, we still have an active teacher for longer than 30 minutes, but we are only requiring them to have that direct interaction with the whole group for the first 30 minutes, and then we're thinking about autonomous activities. I know my staff has asked me a couple different things. They've said, okay, I usually have 3 or 4 different activities planned. Yes, that's exactly right. So in that first half hour, you're going to outline those activities. If there is direct instruction, you're going to provide it there. If you need to go longer, okay, so if you need to go longer, you absolutely can. So if you need 45 minutes, take 45 minutes. What we've asked our teachers, though, is that we've got to be mindful of that. We want to do that to a minimum. We don't want like 4 teachers in a row in one day teaching all 70 minutes, because now we've defeated the purpose of shortening our camera experience and giving kids opportunities to move and take breaks. But if it had to be, if they need more time, that's why we did what we did with our schedule, because we too felt the pressure of taking an 80-minute course and all of a sudden saying you're going to do this all in a half hour. It's not fair for students, and it really was tough for teachers. So I hope that kind of addresses that Q&A.
If you hear from students, though, that it's not enough time for them to absorb the subject, that they'd rather be sitting in front of the computer and learning by instruction rather than, as they have all semester long, just as this student has said, will you be willing to adjust that? Because the premise is that 30 minutes is beyond 30 minutes is too much for them to sit. I think you're seeing in some of these questions, and there's multiple questions, that maybe it's not enough for them.
So Andy, I'll jump in real quick. First of all, the question that was asked was, what keeps administrators up at night? This whole scenario, this whole situation it's such new territory for all of us. And hopefully our parents can see that we're constantly adjusting. The virtual schedule that we created back in the summer, as soon as we implemented it, as soon as we tried putting it into place at Valley, we realized, this doesn't work, and so we had to go ahead and do a quick adjustment. And so, to answer I think it's Brett's question around, why aren't we just not staying with the same schedule that we've done all semester? Well, here's one thing I want you to think about is our on-site kids, at Valley, that's 64% of our population. They've been in class, and so they're not used to being in front of a computer all period for 80 minutes. Besides, best practice demonstrates that 30-minute chunks or no longer than 30 minutes is what's best in terms of trying to deliver that online instruction. I know that some of our teachers, they don't require their online kids to be, virtual the entire 80 minutes. Some do, some really do appreciate that, but others don't necessarily feel the need to have those virtual kids, engage that whole 80 minutes. They can start the class and then at least at the end of the class, come back and check back in. So again, we want to make sure that we're not overwhelming our entire student population. And so that's why we're trying to be flexible. In my opinion, if a student wants to continue with the instruction beyond the 30 minutes, I would just voice that request to the teacher and just simply say, hey, can we continue, for another 20 minutes? And I have some questions I want to ask. And if other students don't have questions, then they can log off, or they can do whatever the asynchronous learning is. But there might be a group of students who do want to stay on and work with the teacher beyond that 30 minutes. So again, right now we're trying to best adjust. We're trying to meet the needs of all of our kids, and we're trying to deliver instruction in a way where it's palatable. Kids can understand it, they can learn it. I know Valley administrators, we have been doing virtual walkthroughs, whereas, we just get on the Canvas course, we link into the class. Today, I was in a class, there were 28 kids. And, now I do know that we do ask that for some classes that the kids do mute their mics so that background noise doesn't get picked up. And so, maybe some of the other little, clearings of throats don't become distractions. And the teachers, they're just, they deliver the instruction in those 30 minutes. And then oftentimes in one class, she put the kids into small groups and said, okay, now this group, you're going to read this section and then we're going to come back. So, different teachers are doing it differently. But again, just trying to adjust, especially in this landscape where we've never been before.
Questions coming across in regards to like contacting the office. So, those of you that might have sent a note to school prior to with your student, send an email to the main office. And so I will, like Becky Bennett, Donna Gaunt, and Michelle Johnson are my 3 secretaries. And we probably better think about that lane is about making sure that those secretaries' contacts information is very much at the top in all of our web pages. And we'll probably send some more information out in regards to that. How do I report COVID? Same scenario. We would want that information coming to the school nurse, just like it is right now. They're the ones that will end up doing the contact tracing. Another question here in regards to the early bird classes, like for instance, Southwoods and Valley have early bird classes. We still have those. So Spanish 1 and 2 were already online for my online students, and they were early bird. Those stay the same, no change for them. Same thing with my PE. Kids that have already been online are staying in that early bird time period. The difference is that now that everybody's going on, if I had 3rd period and that's where I was in person, I'm meeting my teacher for 3rd period. So there is no change for our previously online students for Spanish and PE. They are early bird. And we got that on the schedule. It's still 7:45 to 8:15, and they have designated days. I know PE goes on Tuesday and my Spanish classes go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So those will stay there.
Hey, Mitch, I'm just going to piggyback on your communication related to COVID. So we also have a COVID response line, and we will be making that more prominent on our website, sharing it once again in a family newsletter. So if it's after hours on a weekend, that you can call in and leave a message, and then a nurse will follow up with more information, contact tracing, et cetera. But yes, reaching out to those nurses, they're going to continue to work during this time period, doing the contact tracing, providing resources to you as a family if you are put in that unfortunate situation where you're impacted by a positive case or a close contact situation.
One of the questions in the Q&A was, what do they do for PE online? Well, we've had, like I said, about 150 of our kids doing PE online. For us, they meet once a week. They outline the activities that they're expected to do, but you are actually expected to log. Might be a walk around the neighborhood. It might be do your steps up and down 5 times. Like they've been very creative. There's more to it than that, so don't take those examples. But they are being very creative of how they're getting and meeting their PE standards. But they are able to kind of outline things for the longer term. So we'll see how. Will it be necessary to meet in your PE class as often as they currently are? That'll be determined by your teacher. And like I said, we'll kind of learn as we go with all of us going into that space.
There's definitely some questions coming for David still about the AP class. I feel like maybe we haven't fully addressed that enough for people. When we think back of last year where students were getting about 40 minutes of instruction potentially every day for a class. And now moving into this every other day, I think people are trying to compare that 30 minutes of instruction to what would have been maybe 80, and just feeling like at least for some of these AP classes, that's coming up short. So is there a plan to look at this again?
Again, Alicia, we're always in a state of adjustment. And, simply, this is great feedback for me as a principal that I can take to my teachers and my teams and say, students are actually looking for more instructional time. Some of these kids have been doing this from the beginning of the year, and they have no problem with sitting in front of a computer screen as long as the instruction is relevant, as long as the instruction is provided. So, I'm going to take this feedback and go back to, again, my leadership team. Lane, I think you're hearing this as well, Mitch as well, and seeing if we need to do another adjustment to that virtual schedule.
Well, and my first answer is the time is there. The 80 minutes is there. So if the AP instruction or the AP classes, I'm going to target those right now. If they need that full 80 minutes, guess what? They could take it. We're not going to say that they can't direct instruct all that time. It's just what we were really guarding against was I don't want a student to have to be 80-minute lecture, 80-minute, I don't want that all day. And my guess is that might not be the case. But here's what I'm going to say. If I'm an all advanced student and I'm in all AP classes and every one of them is going to be that way, I did sign up for that. And yes, we have been doing that all year long. So the time is there. And so I think it's going to be the discretion of the teacher, what they need to do. We all feel the pressure of still performing well on the AP exams. We don't want to put our kids at any kind of a disadvantage. And so I would say the schedule that we created actually does now allow. Previously, with the stuff all happening in the morning, we couldn't have done this. So that's why we did what we did, so that if you do need that time, it's there. It's there.
Like to switch over and jump in if you want, but Shannon hasn't had a chance to talk about activities and things like prom and graduation. I know that there may not be decisions, but you maybe have what the protocol is for that.
So as activities come up, we are looking at them very carefully, working with all of our groups and considering infection rates and safety of our students, and just making those decisions on truly a case-by-case basis. Now, that being said, during closure, that will not be the case. During closure, all in-person activities will not be taking place. And that will continue throughout the end of the closure, at least now through December 2nd. And then if closure is extended, those activity cancellations will continue through the end of that time. At this time, I will tell you that nothing is off the table, but also nothing is fully on the table. So again, as event dates come up, we're looking at those. We're carefully considering all of the circumstances in place, and also looking at potential mitigation that we can put into place or modifications that we can make to an activity, so that we can keep it safe for our students. Safety has to be our first priority. And so as much as we don't want to cancel things, and we are always looking for ways to make things work, there are also certain things that just can't in the current situation, in the current landscape. And so I know that's not any final answer, but please know that we definitely understand the importance of school-sponsored activities for our kids and for our families. We also know that we want to find ways to be able to do them in a safe manner if that manner exists.
Did that give David and Mitch some time to look through more questions?
Yeah, somebody had asked if we can keep the online schedule moving forward, and I guess I don't totally understand the question. We will commit to this online schedule moving forward as far as we go, there could be adjustments. If you're asking, would we keep the online schedule for when we actually come back in person, we really can't do that because of the lunch. When we have to serve lunch and do that safely, there's got to still be that pretty big chunk of time in the middle. So we can't keep this schedule for the in-person as much as I'd love to say we could.
Shannon,
so there was a question I saw actually around prom. I'll say this, that at this point, when we think about what a typical Valley dance looks like, where we have, hundreds of bodies in close contact with each other. In the current form and fashion of a Valley dance, with the current situation that we're in, with the numbers that we're seeing, with at this point, no vaccine available, we would not have prom. I can't see that we would have prom in the current form and fashion in which a typical Valley dance is held. We did not have homecoming this year. Instead, we had a homecoming movie night at the stadium, which was socially distanced, but there's just no realistic way to provide that kind of necessary mitigation at a Valley dance. In fact, it kind of goes the total opposite of mitigation. So, I can't imagine without a vaccine, with the current things that we're seeing right now, here in November, if things did not change between now and prom and second semester, I can't imagine that we would have a prom.
And David, just as a follow-up, I know that we've already had an initial meeting related to graduation, knowing that we had great feedback from just the phenomenal work you and your team did to plan 3 events at the stadium. Was it 3? It ended up being 3, right?
3.
And so how do we consider have that be an option if need be next year? And so I don't know that more specifics are available other than to say, I know that they're already looking at what those options might be. If it's a backup to Drake, if it's instead of all of those details, you're already on it.
Right. Yeah, we're already on it. I know that the weather worked with us well last year. The nice thing about Drake is using that facility is, number one, it's climate controlled. So, you don't have to worry about the weather, as well as you can get all the kids through in one shot. That's one thing that I greatly appreciate about commencement at the Knapp Center. Now, the feedback we got around commencement being held at the stadium, it was overwhelmingly positive. So that is on the table as well. Right now, I know we've been in communication with Drake. Right now we have our date held, but again, we have to see exactly where the state of Iowa is with regards to COVID. If there's a vaccine available, if we are able to not worry about the social distancing or masks. If those things are in place, then I'd have to believe that we would look very strongly towards having another commencement at the stadium.
Are there any last questions that you want to take on? Any?
The only thing I want to say is I do want to acknowledge those of you that have thanked us for doing those things. What I always ask as an administrator is, like, it's impossible to do it without my teachers. They have we have asked them to work so hard. And so if you want to send those messages out, I know we couldn't do the cookies this year, during the certain time, but something that will go so far is just to send that message out saying, and it's individualized to your teachers, say, thank you for the hard work you're doing. Those are the types of moments that, as an educator, it fills your cup you'd be amazed at what it does. So thank you for all the positive comments.
We're still trying to figure the cookies out, so we're still on it. Well, with 2 minutes left, unless there are any others that you want to answer directly, I think we'll tie this up. I want to thank Lane. I want to thank David. I want to thank Mitch, and I want to thank Shannon. Thank you so much